Welcome to Unit 4, Lecture 2, Energy and Life. We're going to be focusing in Unit 4 in general in how organisms make energy, how organisms use energy. So we're going to talk about that. Learning objectives. Describe why ATP is useful to cells. Describe what happens during the process of photosynthesis. So ATP is what's known, it's an energy molecule. It's actually part of a nucleotide structure, but leave that. It's adenosine triphosphate. And this compound is the compound that runs every single thing that's happening in a cell. We use ATP to drive every single cellular process. We need it, and what it does is we store energy in ATP and then we use the energy in ATP. Now ATP is made up of three parts. We have adenine, we have ribose, okay, and if you remember, those are very similar to the nucleotide structure in the last lecture, talking about nucleic acids. And then we have three phosphate groups, 1, 2, 3. And that's where the energy is stored. The big thing is this last bond between the second and third phosphate group. I call that the pixie stick bond, because there's a lot of energy stored in that bond, and when we break that bond, just like if you were to snap a pixie stick, the sugar would fly everywhere, the energy flies everywhere. Adenosine diphosphate, which is the building block, or what we need to build adenosine triphosphate, just same structure, it's missing that third phosphate group, so we only have 2, because what we've done is we've used the energy in that third phosphate group to do something, to do some kind of work. When we have energy available, whether we're talking about through the process of photosynthesis, or whether we're talking about through the process of food, when we have energy available, what we do is we store energy into ATP. Thinking about energy, energy is work. Energy is the ability to do work. What happens is our cells take in energy in the sense of like a $50 bill. But we can't spend the $50 bill at a vending machine. Okay, it's really hard to spend $50 for a $1 snack or drink or something like that. So what we have to do is we have to actually break that $50 down into smaller bills. So what we do is we take that energy available in the form of $50 and then break it up into 50 single dollars by adding that phosphate group back into ADP. So ADP is like a partially charged battery. Okay, it's you're not at 100%, maybe you're at 75% or whatever. Okay, it's a partially charged battery. All right, or it's like when your phone goes into battery saver mode and it starts shutting off certain things because it doesn't want to use those things to save battery. Okay, so that's what's happening. But then through the process of chemical reactions, we can add that phosphate back in, so ADP becomes ATP again. And then we can use that to go do something. When we need energy, we release that third phosphate group in that pixie stick bond, we break it, okay, and so if you break a pixie stick, okay, you break it, sugar flies everywhere, you've released that energy. So that's what happens is ATP ends up releasing that energy to become ADP again. And then we start the cycle all over. So ATP becomes ADP, ADP becomes ATP, depending on where the cell is in its absorbing and storing energy, releasing and using energy. Okay. So depending on what process you're talking about, okay, we're storing energy, so we're going from ADP to ATP. Okay, that's where we can store energy. We can charge our batteries. This is when we have sun, food. Okay. And then when we need energy, when we release it to do work, anything your body is trying to do is work. Then it will release that energy and become ADP again, and then we'll keep going around the cycle. Most, well, we have to produce ATP. Cells have to produce ATP. Depending on the type of cell, it depends on exactly how that ATP is made, used. In photosynthesis, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about, okay, plants are using the energy of sunlight to create carbohydrates, okay, and then those carbohydrates will be broken down into ATP again, or to make whoops. Okay, into ATP. So the carbohydrate is like that $50 bill. We can't spend that $50 bill at a vending machine. We can't spend that $50 bill, okay? Yeah, at a vending machine, that's really the best example. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that $50 bill and we're going to divide it up into change, into smaller bills to make it an ATP so we can actually use it. So we talked a lot about autotrophs and heterotrophs when we talked about the food webs, food chains, trophic levels, and all sorts of other stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how chemically they use those different levels. Autotrophs are going through photosynthesis and cell respiration. Okay, to make the energy and to use the energy. Then heterotrophs are eating food to go through cell respiration. And that's how we take the carbohydrates and other types of food and make ATP for our body to function. So the next couple of lectures are going to focus on exactly how photosynthesis makes glucose and sugars and carbohydrates, and how how heterotrophs and plants do cell respiration as well, how they use that glucose to make ATP through cell respiration.